Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this clip I'm going to talk to you about a concept that comes up in the teachings of Neville Goddard, and this concept is the duality of man, or the fact that there are two of me, two of you, two of every individual that comprises the global community of billions. Now, I have alluded to this topic before on my channel in earlier videos, but I see that people still have questions relative to manifestation, relative to the fact that they're not quite clicking with the techniques. And I think that addressing the duality of man again is something that's going to be useful to everyone. Now, one thing to remember is that our outward expression, our human expression, the being that we recognize, the being that we interact with the physical world with, that we interact with each other with, is a marionette or an avatar. It is, although it's hardwired with certain software or applications that enables it to function in the physical world independently, seemingly, it actually does and should receive instruction from the superior aspect of ourselves, which is the body of consciousness. Now, very often what happens when we're born into the world is that we forget about that relationship. And through the teachings of individuals like Neville Goddard and applying his methods, we reunite those two aspects of ourselves. It's not that they have been divided or split up, but we've just forgotten that the other aspect of ourselves exists and we ignore it. We don't respond to its communications to us, and instead we try to figure out life on our own. And this is where we get unstuck. This is where we find it difficult. This is where we face barriers that we seemingly cannot overcome. Now, it's important for us to have these challenges because these are the things that spur us or inspire us to reunite with our superior self. And not only that, through facing challenges that we have no way of overcoming by ourselves because we haven't got the resources or what have you, this is when we are given the opportunity to start to exercise the mind of our body of consciousness, or to use our human imagination consciously. So I don't want to get too complex with terminology, but as usual, you'll put your questions under the video if you have any. I'm just trying to help you to understand the relationship here. So me, Kate, that you see, although I am a normal human being, I live exclusively, I view the world exclusively through a metaphysical lens. And I make sure that I am deferring to my body of consciousness at all times as much as I possibly can. Remember, the physical world is the place in which everything that's going on in consciousness is expressed. That's why all of us have different ambitions, different takes on things. We're not all supposed to think the same way and do the same things. We are selected as individuals to be the expressor or the expression of some function of infinite creative potential. That information is communicated to us by our bodies of consciousness using the method of desire. When you have a desire for something, that is consciousness wanting to take on a new shape, and it's chosen you to do it because you are the best person for the job. Every single one of us, there are billions of us, we all have a separate role. Remember, our body of consciousness has an energetic registry that is as unique to consciousness as a human fingerprint. We have a voice that is distinct from any other voice. Consciousness knows our voice on an individual basis, and consciousness communicates to us on an individual basis. This is what I want to show up in the physical world as today. Without the physical world, we don't know what consciousness in operation looks like. Our lives are an expression of that. If you are thinking about something you're trying to manifest and it's a problem for you, you don't see how it's going to happen, you are applying logic and reason, and that means you are using your human aspect to try and deal with this, whatever the situation is. Your body of consciousness knows that there are no constraints placed upon it. It has no limitations placed upon it. So what sort of limitations do we have? There are limitations of age. There are sometimes limitations of race or gender or socioeconomic background or the level of our education, the family we're born into, where we're born. People can't move around the world freely if they're not from a certain country or a citizen of a certain nation or whatever. Sometimes you're deemed to be too young to make decisions or too old to participate in certain activities. If you have a certain health status, certain things might be denied you or barred to you. Okay, so these are sort of limitations that are placed upon us, and these limitations serve the purpose of inspiring us to look beyond our physical form to something else, and that something else is our body of consciousness. If you remember in one of my earlier clips, I talked about the fact that substantively our bodies of consciousness, although individualized, are the same substance as consciousness itself. Now that body of consciousness knows that all that needs to happen is that energy needs to be transmitted to consciousness. That is the spiritual language of emotion, and that language tells consciousness what shape to take. And that's why we need to attack or take on our manifestation goals using our body of consciousness and allow the results to be transmitted to our physical human expression, not the other way around. We need to shift or change our perspective. If you find yourself saying that something can't happen, you are thinking as a human being. You are not thinking as consciousness. If you feel excited about something being possible, something showing up in the physical world, you are thinking as consciousness. Now, all we need to do as human beings to defer to our superior being is to consent. That's all. And we consent by neutralizing doubt. Remember what Neville says. At the point or the moment at which doubts vanish, your manifestation, your desire becomes an objective reality, and it doesn't matter what it is. Let me give an example. You could live in a community where there's a lot of homelessness. You know that there are empty buildings that say a hotel has gone out of business, and there are just rooms standing there that could easily be used as accommodations for people who would otherwise be on the street. You may not have the contacts or the resources to make that possible. Make that a reality, but this desire, when it's impressed upon you, is not saying now go and solve this, break down someone's door and make this happen. All it's saying is that I have turned that empty building into accommodations for these homeless people. I need you to say yes. I have chosen you to be the expresser of that, and I need you to say yes. And you say yes by neutralizing doubt. How do we neutralize doubt? We do it in a couple of ways. We engage in the scene constructed in our mind of consciousness, the mind of our body of consciousness, or the activity of our human imagination, if that's easier for you to understand, using our subjective senses. Let's say that you are the manager of this building. You would be in your office, perhaps you'll be talking to your staff. Would they be wearing uniforms? Would you provide breakfast? Would you provide a laundry service? There are just an infinite number of scenarios that you can concoct to suggest that what you see about that building is actually real. Once you engage in this sort of mental activity, you are saying no to doubt. You're saying no to the human mind and yes to consciousness. At the point at which you become fully persuaded that it is real, that's the point at which your doubts have vanished. It will become real. You don't need to worry about how it happens. The human aspect becomes concerned with how something's going to happen. Consciousness knows that the language of emotion tells consciousness what shape to take. Another way that you can help yourself to neutralize doubt is to deliberately break any negative thought. So if you're thinking about opening day and you get that feeling beneath your solar plexus, that knot, this isn't going to happen, I don't think so, immediately break state, think about something else, deliberately so, wait for the energy to dissipate, and then come back to contemplating this new expression of consciousness on earth. That's all that's going on. So there are two aspects to us. An outward aspect that really should be the being that is getting its instruction from your superior being, that has no limitation placed upon it. If you find yourself overly concerned with how things are going to work out, then you need to find a way to stop yourself from doing that and just notice how you feel. Get into feeling, because feeling is the engagement of your body of consciousness. The more time you spend just moving about in your feelings, noticing how you feel about absolutely everything and everyone around you, the stronger the bond between your superior aspect and your outward human expression becomes, until the point or the day when both aspects of yourself are fully unified. This is what Neville Goddard said. He prefers it that we undergo a transformation of character rather than to be caught up or bogged down by the sometimes futile or misunderstood or misconstrued pursuit of physical things. Once we are unified with our human aspects, consciousness can do its greatest work and your life will transform. Manifesting becomes a normal, natural part of your everyday experience. So I hope that this information is of encouragement to you. I invite you to go back again through Neville's teachings. Those of you who are familiar with Neville, you can Google Neville Goddard. All of this information is free online, and there are lots of people who talk about it as well. I always encourage you to read the text for yourself, though, to get a personal relationship with it. We have two aspects. Our outward human aspect is the servant of our superior actual being of consciousness. The interesting thing about it is when you defer, or the more you defer to your body of consciousness, the more pleasurable, fulfilling and fulfilled your physical human life becomes. I think sometimes people feel a little bit anxious or nervous about the fact that they're not going to enjoy life anymore. I can tell you from personal experience that your life becomes altogether much more enjoyable, not least because you begin to understand what the purpose of life itself actually is. And I think that's something that none of us should be denied of. Okay, so I don't want to go on too long. As usual, you are very welcome to pose any questions underneath this clip. But remember, there are two of you, and the two of you shall become one flesh. Now, there is a mystery between the male and female. It doesn't refer to human physical gender. The two becoming one flesh refers to the seed giver and the gestator. Those are the two aspects of ourselves. The male and female that come together, as I say, do not refer to human genders. So if you are a non-binary person or a trans person, this applies to you just as much as it does to cis and heteronormative people. Okay, this applies to absolutely everyone. No one is exempt. There is a male and female aspect to yourself, which esoterically refers to the seed giver, the life giver, or the body of consciousness, and the gestator, the human, the outward human expression. So who is in control of your life? Just get used to using the language of emotion. We're not encouraged to do that in life, I don't think. I don't think that we're told to really allow our feelings to dictate. I think for some people that is like trauma, the suggestion that you can be led by your feelings, but it's absolutely imperative that you learn to be led by your feelings. So have fun. Just notice, as I say all the time, how do you feel about absolutely everything and everyone around you? The more you notice that, the stronger the unity between the dual aspects of yourself will become, and your life will become transformed. You will also be able to manifest your desires because you understand what desires are and how they are brought about. So I look forward to seeing you again in the next clip. Remember to please ask any questions, and I will put links to the earlier videos in which I allude to this topic in the description bar below. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next upload.